Okay, let's try this again. Hello again. Nice to see you. Hello. Shio Nigadawu. I am waiting for Lauren McGill to get on. We're going to have a little conversation today. So it's good to see everybody. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope it's warm where you're at, but not too hot. Okay. So since we're sitting here waiting, I'll just let you all know I wanted to just start having talks, informal talks with, oh, here she is. Okay. Yes. Okay. Our wonderful guest and wonderful friend of mine is coming on the phone. Yay!
Hello.
Hi, Lauren.
Oh, I am
Hi, how are you doing?
well. It is nice to
Good.
see you.
Yes, it's good to see you. Oh, neato.
Yeah, this is
Um,
cool. I've never done this before.
oh, well, good, good.
Yeah.
We have a few people on. I don't know, do you want to wait maybe a few more minutes to see if anybody, oh, somebody else is on, James. So,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Your Butch crush. I think I know them from another name, but thank you for coming. Yeah.
Yes. Kansas City buddies.
Ah, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, from what I remember, they're doing some really neat stuff. Yeah, I've taken a look. So, yeah, we're joined by lovely people today. Yeah.
Yay.
Well, yeah, I'm just gonna start. How about
Okay,
that?
that sounds
Yeah, I
good.
think, okay. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming today and listening in. Um, Nui dai dal gwitawa, ani ki lohi digi yawi chitalagi naule chi maramaskeet. Uh, uh, Yudaha'a, chigi duwagi hiya ngad. Udohi yugari eliga squisti ani yawi ahani. Kohig naule oginali'i Lauren ahni kohig. Um, and so my name is Maura Garcia. I am Cherokee and Mesquite. I am Long Hair Clan. I am a dancer and a choreographer, and I create and perform contemporary indigenous dance, sensual dance. I teach workshops. I do community projects, and that's how I met my lovely friend Lauren here. Was We were working on a grant together for a project, and so the purpose of these little talks is I figured, just sometime every other week or so, I would get together with a beautiful creative person that I have the benefit of knowing and having in my life, and that we would just talk. So without further ado, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yes, and everyone should get coffee or tea if they want coffee or tea.
I made some for me and my ancestors. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, oh, and I should say right now I'm in Spokane territory. I'm in Spokane, also Spokane, Washington. And you can tell us where you're at and about yourself, please, Lauren.
Yes, I am in New Orleans, Louisiana. I actually do not know all of the um, all the indigenous people who have lived on this land. Although I did know Cherokee peoples through my own ancestral research, but I do not know specific names. So that is homework for myself for sure. I am a reader and an artist, among other things. But I think those are my main two focuses right now, and I'm studying art therapy.
What kind of reader? I know the answer, but I'm supposed to ask this. Okay.
Oh, yes, yes. A diviner. I use tarot mostly, and oracle to do readings.
Oh, stop. And what kind of art? What kind of art do you do?
Oh, that's a long question. I was trained as a printmaker, but I explain that to children as making stamps. So
Mm.
I mostly draw.
Ah,
I
and
illustrate.
she does wonderful drawings. Yes. Well, thank you, Lauren. Yeah, she does wonderful work, wonderful readings. If any of you will ever need a tarot card reading. Um, so today, I just asked people if they wanted to talk about anything, and Lauren came up with the idea of talking about uh, the elements, meaning like the elements of the earth, Agil, Gadohi, Unaule. So the earth, fire, water, wind, and how we use those in our work. So actually, I would like to hear from you, your response to this question. What are your ideas about that?
That's so funny because I specifically chose that because I want to know more about how you use the elements and seeing the work that you've been sharing online. Um, there are a lot of videos that have you dancing outside and working with the earth and the air and the water, and it made me think about when I described myself as being a baby witch when when I first came to tarot. I had no idea that what I was naturally doing. Excuse me, I'm gonna pause for a second. My screen keeps going out.
Mm.
Do you
Yes,
see that happens?
oh, you're a little cloudy, but you're still beautiful. So just,
Oh.
you're like fuzzy, but it's okay.
Yeah. Um, when I was, like I said, like a baby witch, I was doing these things intuitively that later, when I came to really get serious about working with my ancestors, I came to understand that like I was doing.
Uh-oh. Oh, you froze. Oh, okay. Well, she is gone temporarily. What she was just saying is that Lauren does work with tarot cards and she does readings, and she was saying that um, she was exploring this but didn't realize that it was connected to the work that her ancestors had been doing in the traditions of her ancestors. And that, at some point she realized that these tarot readings and these trying to find out more about divining and getting into that was actually linked to what her ancestors had been doing. So, now they've come together like this. And hopefully she'll come back soon. But while we're all here together, while we're waiting for Lauren, does anybody have any questions about the kind of work that either of us do? And please put them in the chat. I always wanted to say that. Please put them in the chat. That's very exciting. So if you have any questions, just type them down there while we're waiting for Lauren to come back on. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? I don't know who Ferrero236 is, but Ferrero236, if you have any questions, or Tao, if you have any questions. Oh, here she is. Okay, she's coming back. And we're waiting. There you are. Okay, with a new backdrop. I want to change my backdrop now.
Well, I think I was like too far from the interwebs.
Okay.
So now
oh, good. Okay, so we have a question. I'm curious about the role elementals play in your work. Thank you, and we're going to answer that. So we'll get to that. So Lauren, I was just telling them that you said you were exploring the tarot world and divining, and that you didn't realize that you had an ancestral connection to that. And then now the ancestral connection and the exploring, divining, and tarot cards have now come together like that.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a
Okay.
beautiful way of explaining it. And I wanted to bring this topic up with you specifically because I have, had like personal interactions with you as far as like ritual work when you were here in New Orleans. And that is when, since moving here and being like physically closer to a lot of my ancestral roots, like here and in Mississippi, just like with the land, I
Mm.
am observing more things about myself and about the work that I was doing naturally. And it's funny because I looked outside of myself first. Like
Um,
I got really frustrated. I was like, that's why I made my spells deck. I would look at these spells that like non-black or non-indigenous people of color were writing, and I could not relate to the language, but I understood that I had a connection with the elements and that I naturally worked with them. I would do, like spell work for release with fire. I would write things down and burn it, or I would like talk to the wind, or I have always been like a ritual bath taker since I was very young, taken a lot of baths, and I now understand that that was me like clearing my energy very frequently because I was like sensitive to taking things on.
yeah, then that's common medicine, that people will prepare a bath for you to clean to clean you off or to give you luck or to bring you love, whatever you need, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And that's funny. This reminds me of a post I just made, actually. It was about how we begin to think that our traditions and are not legit. So we look somewhere else to find the legit. We're like, and we ignore what we learned at the kitchen table or what we did outside growing up. And like you said, this beautiful when you realize, wait a minute, not only is that legit, that's like legit from hundred thousands of years legit, and it's in my own blood.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny with the working outside. So, I'm a traditional dancer in Cherokee. I shake shells, and a lot of our things are outside. They're all outside. And I didn't grow up shaking shells. I started shaking shells as an adult, but I grew up going to powwows. Powwows are outside. And I always loved being outside, but I also had training in kind of the concert dance world, which means modern dance and dance that takes place in a theater with lights on a stage. And so in my mind, these things are very separate. You have ceremony, you have social and community, and then you have professional on a stage, right? And in my mind, they were separate. And whenever I was rehearsing in the past, I always tried to find a studio to rehearse in. And for several years, I was lucky. I had studio space, which was great. But then I lost my studio space, and I ended up having to rehearse wherever I could find a place. And I tried to rehearse in the gyms, but as soon as you start rehearsing in some part in a gym, like the racquetball people come, the pickleball people come, or somebody is like, "What are you doing?" Or little kids run across your path. It's a public space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so then I would try to find, you can't, for renting space, it's expensive. So I could rent space once in a while, but that's very expensive. So I ended up rehearsing outdoors. And at first it started to feel like, oh, poor me, little artist can't get a studio, have to rehearse outdoors. Um, but then at the time I was creating a piece specifically about the elements. It was about how the elements work together to make things grow during the planting season. And I had been preparing that to be a piece on stage. But when I ended up losing my rehearsal space, I started rehearsing that piece outside. And I thought, oh, why this piece never should have been outside. If I'm thanking the elements in this dance. It doesn't matter that it's not a traditional dance, but you can still use our contemporary art to pray and to give thanks. I mean, that separation is colonial. It comes from, this imposed white society that these things are they're not separate. Yes, ceremony and tradition that, okay, there's a certain way you do that, but if I'm doing a dance now, there's no reason I can't pray in my own way and say thank you to the ground. And I thought, when I'm dancing that dance outside, my feet are on the ground, the sun is on my head. I said, this is supposed to be outside. And you actually, you know, when I'm dancing it, people are like, oh, because sometimes I've done it like 3 times in a day, and people say, oh, don't you get tired? I'm like, no, I don't get tired because the energy from the earth comes up to my feet. And then it's like the sun is looking on me. And, that's one of the main elements that dance is giving thanks to is the sun. So it's like I'm being pushed up and lifted up, grounded and lifted up, grounded, lifted up at the same time. Um, and so, that was really kind of uh, mind opening for me because I didn't realize, they say the unraveling of colonialism is a long process, right? Because we were brainwashed in the school system, So I didn't realize I had that like association. Oh, to be, formal, it can be inspired by the elements, right? And it can be about them. And it has to be, hi, everybody. It can be about them, but it has to be, in a stage and we can talk about it, but it can't actually be in the elements that it's talking about. And I realized, no, that's a colonial BS kind of mindset. That doesn't make any sense. And yeah, yeah. So,
I really,
yeah.
I really relate to that on several levels. And it's funny because I don't know if I ever told you, but I danced a lot when I was younger. Like
Mm.
was trained in ballet for many, many years, and it always felt wrong. Like it felt wrong to
Aw.
me yeah, it felt wrong. And I really love to move and I love to dance and I like to do it outside best. But
Mm.
you're providing me with a new level of like a higher awareness of the tension I was feeling, which was that the rigidity of that system
Mhm.
was really not giving me the freedom I needed to express myself. But you can express yourself within those systems or within those, like you're saying, within the stage, and there is no separation. I think that when it comes to altar making for me, I came to realize moving around so much. Since moving from Kansas City, I've lived Michigan, and now I live in New Orleans. And
Mm.
I have always carried enough of what would fit in my car.
Yep, me too. That's why we're friends, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
nomadic peoples. But
Mm-hmm.
there are certain things that I know that I need in order to create an altar of my space. But then I also know that my body and my life is an altar. And that even if
Mm-hmm.
all of these tools were gone, like you said, you can step outside and you have the earth to support you, and the sun is giving you vital energy. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's windy and that helps too. And so it's very interesting to see how we've layered over time these tools that we need. One of my teachers last week said something very funny. I thought it was so funny. She said that crystals. I don't even know if I should say this. She said crystals were the tip of the dick. That is what she said in terms of spirituality. And I bristled so much with that. I was like, ooh, that's like I couldn't understand until this moment in which I'm like, okay, you don't need these tools when your life is the ritual and when your work and service is the ritual. But I'm not gonna knock minerals.
No.
My ancestors worked with minerals, and I love their support. But it made me think of that.
Well, and they're in the ground.
Yes.
That's where they live. We just take them out of the ground, but they're underneath our feet. So, yeah, and I guess with working, we have no choice but to work with the elements. That's the other thing. Every time we're moving, they're already in us because we have gadohi, flesh, right? Dirt is made from, and then we have wind, and I'm not going to spit, but we have water. We have water, and the reason we're not dead and the reason we're 98 degrees is because we have fire, you know. So just right here, we are everything, and everything is us. So it's like everything is still moving when we're moving. But thinking about working outside, I wanted to say I know that for me, there's two distinctions, I guess, with that. Maybe there's more, but right now I only know two. There is when when I'm looking for a specific kind of place, like flat ground, because even though our ceremonies are outside, for example, we don't have ceremonies on just anywhere. It's a place that's prepared, it's cleaned off with medicine. It's made to be sacred and clean. And so this tradition of clearing off a dance ground, okay, this is, yeah, somebody, when you dance outside, are there specific places that call to you or specific types of places that are best for it? So that's what I'm actually talking about. So for some dances, I'm looking for a recreation of that dance ground. And I found, in our tribal communities, in our southeastern tribal communities, we have dance grounds. But I've noticed from tribes, just all over, indigenous people all around the world, I noticed in some West African villages, they'll have a dance ground. It's a place where it's cleared off and flat. It's still outside, but it's cleared off and flat, and it's made for, you can do more, you can have more people, you can do dance that might be athletic because you're not going to hit a root. And so I have some dances that are made for outside, but they need a space that is clear and flat, But then in terms of how do I pick somewhere, yeah, I think about things, and some of them are not so like profound. I think about if the audience is looking, are they going to see, a building in the background, or are they going to see, trees in the background? Are they going to be in the sun the whole time? Because that might not work for some people. Do they need shade? Sometimes presenters will, or somebody who's asking to have the dance done will think a place is flat and it's not flat. Like what is flat and how flat can it be within, and then do I need to modify jumps because the ground's really like that? Even this can mess up your ankles,
Yeah.
Yes. So there's that kind of dance where it's maybe a piece that I've choreographed for outside, but in order for it to travel all around the world, it needs to have flat open. And then there's been dance that I've been doing now, which with the onset of COVID, because I've been doing it with the camera, that I've been doing in places that I pick for the beauty, but they're not ideal for dancing. So with the movements that I'm doing are based on me moving with that earth and that water, because I can't try to make up movements. I can't be doing, because I'm going to fall over. There might be rocks and running water. So when I'm dancing in a place like that, then I am really thinking about, okay, well, what is the movement that's already going on here, and then how can I be a part of that movement? Yeah, I don't know if does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that
wait, hold on. Oh, wait, sorry. And I don't know your real name. You're Butch Crush. I love you. I love that. Did I answer your question? Molly? Okay, Molly, did that answer the question? Hopefully she'll give us okay, well, we'll come back, but you go ahead and talk then.
Let me get back to my thought. What was I thinking? I was thinking about I was imagining the alignment that you're like feeling when, say, you're in a stream and you're moving with the water, and it made me think of working with the elements for ritual, like conjure and manifestation. And so, an example of that recently are the storms we've had in New Orleans. Oh, I
The
think
storm.
Molly said something.
Oh yeah, she said she. Thank you, Molly. Yes.
In which I would, race outside and collect rainwater and stormwater with the intention of cleansing my home afterwards, like collected water, or cleansing some of my tools, like my decks or my crystals, and even for spiritual baths. And if that storm had not happened, then I wouldn't have that water. Like if I was not aware, if I was not paying attention, or not in the right place at the right time, then I wouldn't have it.
No, that's true. So do you find, I'm just curious now that you're in New Orleans and now that you're close to that river, has that river basically changed? And I don't know if you were reading cards before you came to New Orleans or how much you were doing that, but has that changed the way you work? Like maybe before were you just reading cards in a room, inside, and now do you find yourself, like you said, collecting rainwater more or working with dirt more, or has it changed because of where you're at right now?
Yes, it really has. It's funny that I have been reading tarot, I think, since I met you in 2014, but I was like a closet reader. Like I would just read for myself. I kept journals and, diaries, and it wasn't until I came to New Orleans, and even then, just a year ago, that I began reading for other people. But since being on this land, one of my favorite things to do is to go to City Park and to find, like a grassy opening, just like sit on the ground and read. And
read tarot.
Okay. It's so funny that like being in that space, I also feel that it provides me more energy. So throughout the time of being here, sometimes I would do readings for people online, like just say like, hey, if you would like a card or a message, then send me your initials, and then I'll just do this quick reading because of just like the freshness of just like being outside. And then there's usually water at City Park no matter where you're sitting. There are many old trees. And a strange thing that I did not know I would be doing here is that there's such like talkative wildlife here that I would find like butterflies or moths following me at the park, or like I would hear a specific bird. So then I would just like pull a card and ask like, what is the message that I'm supposed to receive from this creature? And that has sort of that's led me down some rabbit holes sometimes when I think I'll be at the park for like 15 minutes and then I'm like in a weird conversation with a butterfly and its friend for an hour.
That's good. Paying attention. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I was thinking in New Orleans especially, you have that big river, right? Which so many rivers from both north, Bikalugu north, or I keep on saying that. No, east and west, are coming together.
Yes.
Around the Mississippi. And so you have a lot of connections to people through water all over, like Amayetli, aka Turtle Island area, because of that river. We have a question for you. And then after that, also, I think we'll open up to other people's questions, or just everyone, you can ask more questions too, Molly, but everybody can ask questions. So, Lauren, how did you get started with tarot? And thank you, Eric. He gave a nice comment. He said our faces gave him hope. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I began reading tarot fresh out of art school. I was very sick spiritually, physically, mentally, and my first thought when I graduated school was to leave, and I went on a very long road trip, and I did not listen to my body or what was going on, and I took a job like about a week and a half into that road trip, and I turned back around. When I look at the map now, it feels so silly. My plan was to go from Kansas City to San Diego to see my uncle. I was in Arizona.
Mm.
And I turned back around for capitalism. And I turned back around because I felt the pressure of my student loans, even
Oh.
a week after graduating, and I became even more physically ill, and so I started seeking out classes, like
Mm.
spiritual classes, to try and figure out what was going on with me mentally, because the healthcare system had kind of failed me in that city. And so I was
Mm.
like, I have to find something else to do. So I took a channeling class, and it's funny that
Mm.
we are talking about channeling from the earth, because when I do readings, I channel from spirit and then I ground it in the physical. And that I learned that technique in this class, and the teacher came around with a deck of tarot cards. I thought I was going to burst into flames. And I was like watching other people take these cards, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And then he got to me, and I was like, everyone else did it. So I took the card, and I pulled it. It was the Lover's card. It's literally tattooed on my arm now.
Mm.
And then from that day on, I was like, wow, there's so much in this. And I was lucky that there were these collaged images that like really
Mm.
touched me as a printmaker. There are like little worlds in the card.
Mm.
And that's the first time I pulled them. And ever since, that's when I started reading for myself and healing my mental. That was really mental based for several years.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. I didn't hear. See, I'm glad we had this conversation because I didn't know that. So,
I
yeah,
was
I
so
didn't hear.
I
Yeah.
had a living aunt growing up who read cards. I would say that she was a spiritualist in a
Mm.
Christian family, and my entire family demonized her.
Mm.
I really don't know who she was in the physical. Now that I'm developing a relationship with her since she's passed, it's much different. But everyone's projections onto her as a child, that's all I knew. And so I thought what
Oh.
she was doing was like not good. I've heard about
Mhm.
spiritual things she would do with my family, and it's so sad. I think we talked about this at the beginning, but how being in these oppressive systems, white supremacy, capitalism, like just Christianity, have
Mm.
had us like demonize our spirituality.
Oh yeah, they've made it. One of our leaders at our ground says they've made it like toxic. So it's people are even afraid to look. They're afraid to look at our own, especially. And this is very. I can't speak for, Native people and well, I can't speak for anybody. I can speak for myself, but I mean for Southerners in particular, this is a very like because we're in the Bible Belt, you know, and so for Native people, like most of our people, I would say actually most people of color in the South are heavily Christian, you know, including Mexican American people. And you take any group of color in the South, and we're heavily Christian. And with the Southern Christianity along that comes some of this I'm gonna like this at our traditions, right? We're afraid to look at them too much because they remind us of who we are, right?
Yeah.
And they've been demonized on purpose because that's how they, converted us in the first place.
Take
Um,
our day.
yeah, yeah. Um, I could talk about that all day. So we're not talking, we can have another session. But I wanted to ask, does anyone have any questions out there? Any of you all on? I know people go in and come out as you can, and thank you for coming in anyway. But just, hi Zoe, and One Earth United. Do any of y'all have any questions for either of us? And also you, Lauren, do you have any more questions or thoughts or anything else you'd like to share?
No, I flow. I just like flow in and out of the conversation. So I didn't have anything concrete in mind.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, to hear about your process and just seeing you connect with the earth in your videos is very grounding for me, and I appreciate it.
Oh.
I live so close to the water, but so many circumstances this year have made it to where I'm just inside more, just for self-preservation and protection. I'm constantly wrapping my head. There's just a lot going on energetically, and this kind of goes back to my childhood. I grew up on a ranch. I grew up in the country. I grew up in Osage Nation. And in the pandemic, it's hard for me to go outside, just knowing how it affects Black and brown people, knowing how my gentrified neighborhood is treating this. I just feel like I can't go outside as often as I would like. Connecting with your work and, finding other ways of connecting with the earth, like breath work has been really nice this year. Meditation and some sensual dancing in my in my living room have kept me as grounded as I can be.
That's good. That's good. That's all we can do, So yeah, that makes me happy. Thank you for saying all that. I don't think I have any lasting questions. I have all these personal questions, but we don't have to talk about them on IG Live.
Yeah.
Not for Instagram. But thank you everybody who came today. And I wanted to keep these talks short so people could check in and then go on their day. But thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you, Lauren. And maybe I'll call you back afterwards just to check in some more. But yeah, I'm happy to see everybody. Everybody take care of yourselves and your family and your people. And I'll see you next time. And Lauren, it's nice to see your beautiful face.
You too, my love. Be safe, y'all.
Okay, bye, everybody. Bye. Thank you, Molly. Yes, thank you. Maybe we should have a talk. I'm just inviting people to talk. So, okay. Bye.
Bye.